Welcome back to Read the Book First, a book to movie adaptation podcast. Today, Spencer is back to help us break down the 2026 adaptation of Wuthering Heights in quotation marks. We both saw this opening night, which I thought was so cute. We
hmm
didn't plan it. And so, for those listening in the future, we saw it at opening night. We're recording a week later. And in this last week, there have been so many think pieces about this movie.
So many.
I am so glad I saw it at opening night, so I didn't get all of TikTok and Instagram's
hmm
spoilers of thoughts and stuff.
Yes.
And I don't know. I think I enjoyed it.
I am so glad you said that because I also enjoyed it. And I
Yes.
know I'm in the minority. And I was like, I
Yes.
wonder, Janessa's either going to hate it or she's going to love it, or maybe something in
Yeah.
between. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay, this
I
is
have a lot of thoughts. And
same.
um I went to it alone, and as soon as I got back in my car, I recorded a quick video of me just like shouting everything at my phone of like, this is what I think. Because I was like 10 o'clock by the time, and I was like, I'm not gonna write any notes. Like that's not my capability right now. So I was like,
Yes.
okay. And I re-listened to that like essentially voice note I left myself. I listened to it again yesterday, and I was like, this sounds like a psychotic person. Like what? This none no the, none of my reactions and thoughts were connecting. I think they have since connected since I've had a week to kind of like ruminate and figure out what exactly all my reactions, were
Yes.
and were too.
100%.
Yeah, but so you saw it with your husband, which,
I did.
Valentine's Day. They marketed it as a Valentine's Day movie.
It was. And it was a very memorable cinematic experience because it was opening night. I think Connell was the only man in the theater. An entire sorority, I live in a college town, an entire
Uh-huh.
sorority came and they were like reacting to everything. So the energy in the theater was very palpable. And I love that. I love the like collectivity of a shared
Mm-hmm.
cinematic experience.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like the room was very electric with energy from watching this
Yes.
movie together.
Yeah.
So that was very fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So like it's hard to go into, especially this movie, because there was so much like hate and
hmm
excitement on both ends of this movie
Yes.
before it came out. And I'd say vocally there's more hate towards the movie. And like
hmm
I don't think people who do hate the movie are wrong. Like
hmm
their points are all very valid, and I agree with a lot of their points.
Yeah, very
Um,
legitimate.
Yes. But it was such an interesting movie watching experience, and I agree. It's like what I enjoy with going to the cinema in person. Like I went by myself, but there was a couple like couples, and there was like a group of girls that were definitely
hmm
there for like a Valentine's Day hang. And they were like giggly, so it was an emptier theater.
hmm
But it was still very fun. And then, all the dialogue online and talking to my friends, and my friends are all like, should I go to the movie? And I've been telling them, I think. Like, I don't, like this movie, it's like, I don't know if I'd recommend this to most people.
hmm
And I don't know if I even think it's good, but I did enjoy it, you know?
I think I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
My response, I had a very hard time articulating what made the movie so intriguing to me. It was a
Hmm.
very affective experience. I felt like kind of enveloped in the world
Hmm.
of the movie in a way that I didn't really have words to articulate for a while. And I don't know if
Hmm.
I fully do now, but
Hmm.
that very quality of it is what made it hard for me to when inevitably my friends and family wanted to hear my thoughts as well. And I was a little bit guarded about it. I said, you can listen to the podcast. I'm not going to like get into all of it now. So plugging the pod,
Yes, we love
and
it.
also saving myself, for this conversation.
Hmm.
Um, but I really, it was hard to figure out,
Hmm.
especially to separate, people were making very, well-reasoned arguments for why the film, you know, had issues, and I totally saw that. But at the same time, I had this kind of effect. It almost felt like a
Hmm.
spell that the film cast on me that I was trying to
Yes.
reconcile with the rational.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. And like there's parts of this movie I love. There's parts of this movie I hated, but they were so
Hmm.
campy that I was just like, this is hilarious. Like, you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
kind of, I think that's one of the reasons why I enjoyed it so much is like parts that were good were really, really good. The parts
Hmm.
that weren't went so past what bad is, it circled back around to, oh, I'm having fun.
Hmm.
Like it's just it was an absurd movie. Um and I've
Yes.
not seen either of her other movies. Uh
Hmm.
so this is the first thing I've ever seen that she's created, Emerald Fennel.
Hmm.
And I can I'm like I now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go watch the other two movies. I'm way behind on Saltburn and Promising Young Woman. I'll go watch them when I see them at my library and I can snag them for free, you know.
Yeah.
But I just I understand her being like, I'm making this as a perspective of me when I was 14.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that makes sense for a lot of reasons.
Makes so much sense now.
It makes so much sense. And, you know, I also have seen some people say this is essentially what if someone who identified with Kathy as a character would then make a movie. And I was like, you're right. Cause like there's so many, it's like, it's so weird. My brain wants to like talk about this movie as itself outside of the context of it being an adaptation. But the other half
Hmm.
of me wants to talk about the adaptation parts. And
Yeah.
I think this is the first movie in a while that like I can see it. I have so many deep thoughts about both,
Hmm.
looking at it within context and without,
Absolutely.
especially like I'm thinking of recent adaptations I've seen and loved that were more in conversation with the original text, like uh,
Hmm.
Del Toro's Frankenstein. Speaking of
Oh,
Jacob
yes.
Elordi, like that's
Yep.
like not a perfect adaptation, but like it's in conversation with Mary Shelley's book or
Hmm.
Nosferatu. Like that's
Yeah.
way more in conversation with the original movie and Dracula in general. So like I think other popular adaptations are more successful in that respect than this movie, but this movie being not as much in conversation with the original text kind of makes it exciting,
Hmm.
you know? And I do wish, like other people I've seen online, I do wish she didn't call it Wuthering Heights.
Mm.
I wish she called it like Kathy and Heathcliff or C&H.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it felt like the movie wasn't fundamentally like the book feels like Wuthering Heights as a place and everything it signifies is central to everything that happens. And I don't think that the space of Wuthering Heights is the like linchpin that holds the movie together. It is
Mm-mm.
absolutely Kathy and Heathcliff.
Hmm.
And so that shift in focus does make the title, I mean, it's a wonderful title. Like it's fun to say, Wuthering Heights. And it
Yeah.
kind of sends like a little shiver down your spine. Like I get why, like kind of aesthetically, it looks good on the posters.
Hmm.
But in terms of a an articulation of kind of what the film is at its core, I agree. I don't think it fully applies.
Yeah. And I think a lot of her, not all of her criticism, and I do think, and we'll get into it. Some of the criticism is very valid, but I
Yes.
do think if she would have not called it Wuthering Heights in quotation marks and put so much PR to her idea of like it's not a true adaptation, so I'm putting in quotation marks because I could never make Wuthering Heights. I'm like, well, yes, should anyone make Wuthering Heights into a movie? It's a very toxic, incredibly depth, like deep
Yeah.
intense book that like maybe actors shouldn't be acting. I don't know. That's a bigger question for Hollywood in general.
Mhm.
But like I they put so much energy into in that conversation of her calling it Wuthering Heights in quotation marks and her being like I could never do it justice. I was like, well then just change the title and then I like honestly like a fourth of your hate and criticism would be away. You know what I mean? I think they missed that. But the opening scene
Hmm.
was just shocking. And like
Yeah.
I had been spoiled because at whatever premiere people online had been, talked about how it starts with the hanging
I heard about
and
that too.
I heard about it, but I had forgotten about it until I was watching it. And I was
You were
like,
shocked anew.
I was shocked because it's the screen's black. There's like breathy noises that could either be someone struggling to breathe or sexual noises. And in my
Hmm.
head, I was like, okay, she's getting right into it. Cool, whatever. and then it's
Mhm.
someone who's getting hanged, and uh it's like almost like a Machiavellian like crowd freaking out over this
Mhm.
man dying because he has an erection as he dies, which is, and the kids like point at it, and like there's a nun who's like enjoying it way too much. The view of it, it's like I I don't think I liked the beginning opening scene.
Yeah, it didn't feel uh yeah, I wasn't a fan either. I wonder if one of the reasons it was there is trying to kind of signal to the historical context, which is kind of bizarre because most of the movie feels very devoid of any historical context. But thinking about, this is supposed to be set in the late 18th century, so the revolutions, many different revolutions, including the French Revolution, are in recent history. So the idea of public executions being, very much kind of in the cultural imaginary. I wondered if that was the reason. And
Hmm.
also, of course, to kind of index Kathy's kind of enjoyment watching violence, because we see a young Kathy watching this
Hmm.
hanging scene and she's cheering with the rest of the crowd. So those
Hmm.
seem to be maybe two of the purposes that it was there, but it didn't
Yeah,
really, I didn't love it. It
it
felt
doesn't
kind of
connect.
excessive. Yeah.
Like I can see her being the director, I keep saying her, uh like for those reasons, and also for like shock value,
Yes.
being like,
Yeah.
here's the tone of the movie, which also I think is not good because honestly, I thought the movie was gonna be like freakier than it was.
Me too.
There's
That was
no
the
nudity.
PR. No.
Not that I was like, "Well, I want to see them naked." I was like, I am expecting to due to the PR
Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm.
And there's no nudity, but then they have this wildly like explicit scene at the beginning with the man, and then it kind of like tapers off for the rest of the movie almost. Like there's tension
Hmm.
for sure, and there's obviously, we'll get to, there are like sex scenes later,
Yeah.
but like I don't know, I think it's a the movie in general, I would say, is very disconjuncted. It's not a smooth movie. And she's not trying to create a like, you know, smooth ride. She wants us to feel uncomfortable. I feel like as a
Hmm.
director, that's like very much her. She's very visceral. There's a lot of
Yeah.
like random close-ups of like that snail, for instance. Like it was a close-up of the
Yes.
snail, and then it zooms out, and it's like, oh, a snail on a window. Okay. Kathy puts her finger in the gelatin fish, right? Like it's very
Hmm.
visceral, tactile, trying to make us uncomfortable. But like, I
Hmm.
don't think it goes far enough to actually make like, I don't know. I felt left down for how not uncomfortable I was at times.
Hmm.
Like on the scenes that were not part of the plot, like the snail, for instance, like things like that were just kind of like randomly through the movie. Those parts, I was
Yeah.
like, what? Like, this is
Hmm.
not adding to the plot, not adding to my uncomfortableness of the plot. It's just visually weird.
Yeah. I I'm not fully sure what to make of those either. I mean, I think I'm a huge horror fan, so my like
Hmm.
tolerance for like gross things I think is pretty high. So those didn't really elicit much of a
Hmm.
reaction from me. There were moments where, because some of the close-ups, like you think they're something more explicit than they are, and then they turn out to be like someone's kneading bread, but it looks like skin, so you think it's some
Hmm.
like sex thing, and then it's like no, someone's just kneading some bread, and like I wondered, like, is that, or is that sort of trying to give the viewers a sort of a view into the minds of the characters who are also thinking about those things. There's a lot of, repressed desire. So they're seeing their desire kind of reflected
Hmm.
in their surroundings. I guess that's kind of what I made of it. But at times it seemed a little bit like kind of like the first scene, like calculated to have shock value. But I don't know if it always maybe hit the way,
Yeah,
at least with me, I don't know if it hit the way that it was intended to hit.
I agree. Yeah. And it just is very odd. And like, I don't know. It was just the movie, like each part of the movie, I just like, I'm so intrigued by the decisions and
Yes.
why and how they play off each other. But the first part of the movie after the hanging scene, oh, the opening title sequence with the hair in stop motion,
Oh yeah, that was
with the Charlie
wacky.
XCX, I'm gonna die in this
Yes.
house. Like, I was wacky and I loved it. I was like, when I saw the hair
Yeah.
thing, I was like, okay, this is calling back to like the obsession of hair in Victorian novels,
Hmm.
like and in Wuthering
Yes.
Heights, and them getting intertwined. And I liked
Hmm.
that, and I was hoping it was going to go with more of that like feel. But then we have the childhood section, which is at the most we're at Wuthering Heights, and it's the most
Hmm.
what we picture Wuthering Heights as like an old decrepit house on the windy moors, right?
Hmm.
Those kid actors were great.
They were really talented, and they looked a lot like a younger Jacob
Yes.
Elordi and Margot Robbie. They cast
Yeah.
them really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoyed the beginning part of the movie because of the kid actors. They did a really good job. It was, you could see the shared trauma they had of when they brought in Heathcliff. And the few changes they made, I think, were interesting. For example, their dad is now essentially combined, the dad and Hindley.
Hmm.
And a lot of people are upset about that, online at least. I was fine with that. I was like, this is good. This is a good move.
Yeah. I think it worked because Fennel wasn't as interested in the themes of generational trauma, by
Hmm.
not depicting the second half of the book at all, and by really kind of cutting down the cast of characters to really just be Kathy and Heathcliff, and then the people that kind of directly relate to their arc as a couple,
Hmm.
or as not a couple. So I think that it made sense to dial in on that and kind of remove the background noise, because it would have felt like she was trying to put too much into the movie given her sort of priorities of which relationship she wanted to have be at the center.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought that was a really smart move of hers. And then we also get to see Nellie and Kathy be buds. And then as soon as the dad brings Heathcliff in, Nellie is cast aside immediately. And I do like
Hmm.
that we see that kind of like that important moment in Kathy and Nellie's relationship. Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's way more obvious and pointed than it is in the book. The book's way more nuanced with all the Nellie Kathy stuff,
Hmm.
because Nellie is the narrator in the book, whereas here we don't have that framing. And thank
Yeah.
God we don't have Lockwood.
You didn't miss him.
Thank God, Lordy. But I really enjoyed, you know, the setup of the kid actors. I enjoyed seeing Nellie. I thought um the dad at the beginning, like he comes in kind of charming, but then we see him immediately get into his like drunken rage and ends up
Hmm.
we see Heathcliff, taking on that physical burden from and saving it from Kathy. We see them setting up Kathy and Heathcliff's relationship so much quicker there
Hmm.
because of that. And it's obviously the whole, focus of this movie is those two, right? And she doesn't care about the generational trauma. She doesn't care as anything else, but besides like class, barely. I mean, like, yes and no. Like she thinks she really, I don't know. I think she thinks she really went to town on like dissecting classism and pointing out that the rich are bad. But like I don't think it was as deep as she thought it was.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. I did think it was interesting how she gave Nellie more of a backstory. We hear that she's the illegitimate daughter of a lord, and she's played by an Asian actress. So I think the presumption there is that her father was probably English and had a relationship with an Asian woman, and because he couldn't have her, as ostensibly in his household, she got kind of sent away to the Heights. Maybe he knew Mr. Earnshaw, and now she's here, but she's been cast off. So you have kind of the twinning of her and Heathcliff both being kind of child cast-offs who
Hmm.
don't have a family anymore. And Nellie is also Catherine's protector. Early on, we see in one of Earnshaw's drunken rages, he tries to. he tries to run after her, and Nellie like bars the door and doesn't let him come through. So when Heathcliff then comes in and ends up absorbing Earnshaw's rage, Nellie isn't really needed anymore. And so we kind of have an origin story that she definitely in the book doesn't narrate, how she comes to the details maybe of how she comes to see her and Kathy's relationship differently, besides just the fact that she kind of found her insufferable. But we're getting a different angle here. And I thought
Mhm.
that was interesting.
Yeah, I do. I liked the change in Nellie in general, and it makes like a triangle between Heathcliff, Kathy, and Nellie in their
Hmm.
like relationship because of Nellie and Heathcliff both being not literally related to her, but essentially siblings growing up together, right? There's still like some
Hmm.
incestuousness between the three of them because they grew up together,
Hmm.
but then they are both protecting Kathy. And then as they go into, when they're adults, it also, I think, adds to the choices that Emerald Fennell made with how the love story ends up going. Um,
Hmm.
which, we talked about that part when we get there. I loved the how we transition from when they're young in that like they're out in the moors in some abandoned little archway like near one of the cemeteries, and the little kids are sitting there, and we have that, it gets mirrored later on the line where Heathcliff's like, let's just go back, it's going to be raining the whole time, and Kathy's like, no, wait, there's some blue out there, you know and that
Hmm.
that line ends up getting repeated way later in the movie by Heathcliff to Kathy. And I don't know, I thought that was a very sweet aspect of the movie. Like, I think there's a lot, there's not many sweet parts of this movie, but I think those
Hmm.
little parts really shine out. Um,
Yeah.
but then we get to them as adults,
Hmm.
and let's talk about the casting of Jacob Elordi and Margot Robbie.
Yes.
Emerald Fennell does something that some directors do where they kind of cast the same crew of actors in almost all their movies, which I
Hmm.
in general kind of like. It's like, oh, look at the gang's back together, but I like it
Yeah.
like when Wes Anderson does it and they're like this random side character. I like
Mm.
it in that way. I have not honestly, besides Frankenstein, I have not seen much of Jacob Elordi's acting, so I didn't know what to expect.
Hmm.
I I don't think he should have been casted based on the themes of the movie. Like the whitewashing of this movie is incredible and wildly chosen, but he's a great actor. I know this is
Hmm.
not news to most of the people in the world, but it's news to me. I was like, I was like, this man, what? And like I think choosing to cast a white man as Heathcliff is wrong in general, but Elordi did a great job as Heathcliff. I
Yeah.
also, in general, I like Margot Robbie as an actress. I don't think she should have been Kathy because she's too old, and also I didn't like the chemistry between them.
Really?
Yeah, I like they did both. They're great actors and they're both beautiful
Hmm.
people. So like it was like watching two talented, beautiful people doing things they're made to do. I was like, okay, they're doing good, but like the tension wasn't there for me.
Mm.
Yeah, um, and I think it's because Margot Robbie's too old to play Kathy, and the age difference between her and Jacob Elordi is pretty. It's at least 10 years, probably.
Is it? I thought they were a little closer in age. Is it
Maybe
like
I'm wrong.
6 or 7 years? Here, I can
Maybe.
let's Google it because now I'm not sure.
Again, I've barely watched any Jacob Elordi stuff besides Frankenstein, so I do not know
So
much.
Jacob Elordi is 28
Hmm.
and Margot Robbie is 35. Okay, so 7 years.
Okay, so that's not terrible. She's only 35.
Yeah, I know. She does not look. She looks like maybe 30 to me.
That's wild. I thought she was much older than me.
Really?
Yeah, she's only 3 years older than me.
I mean, she was
That's
Barbie just a
wild.
couple years ago, and Barbie has
Yeah.
she's kind of like ageless and timeless, and I guess I
Yeah.
associate her with that. It's like she's always gonna look like
Oh, she's gorgeous and age.
30-ish.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just thought she was, I don't know. Good on her. Um, but she's 35 playing what's supposed to be like 18-ish, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially
Yeah.
since we do have like what 4 or 5 years throughout the time when they're adults in the movie,
Hmm.
when she's supposed to be young Kathy, I didn't, I don't know. It didn't hit for me.
It seemed a little ridiculous to me at first that we were supposed to imagine her as this young, kind of coquettish, like she was playing Kathy, I think, in many ways, very much how she is written in the book, like the
Hmm.
same kind of spirit, kind of bratty, kind of spoiled, impetuous, because we see that I guess we can get to the plot changes with the Lintons in a moment, but she's imagining meeting them, and we hear her
Hmm.
talking about it, and she doesn't, Margot Robbie is, she doesn't look old by any means, but she does not look like a, 16, 17, even 18-year-old who's,
Hmm.
maybe like super excited about meeting the new neighbors and like maybe there'll be a
Hmm.
gentleman for her to meet. It just, I almost like, my instinct was to laugh a little bit because it's like, I don't know how we're supposed to make this
Yeah.
connection. But I'd say with time, I think maybe it's just because she is such a good actor that the more I watched her, the more I felt,
Hmm.
I didn't it didn't continue to bother me. And especially as the characters mature and get older, and are playing older versions of Kathy and Heathcliff, I feel like it hit more
Hmm.
for me, or made more
Yeah.
sense for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I just still think the casting is so interesting, even without talking about the like race that Heathcliff, he's not white. But even besides that, I think it's just interesting casting. I do wish their Yorkshire accents were stronger. Uh,
Oh.
and then there's two Aussies playing British people. Like I mean, they did better than I could ever do. But I wish, especially Heathcliff, because he's not educated, whereas Kathy has some sort of schooling. Same with Nellie,
Mhm.
like they're reading books or Nellie's reading books, So like they have some sort of schooling so that they have a more refined accent of sorts. But I do wish Elordi's accent was stronger. And shout out to my Big Fat Mad Diary, that show I watched randomly when I was a teenager. It takes place in the north of England, and those guys have thick Yorkshire accents, and that's what I really wanted. And I was like, it would have been so good. Um, I so before they like meet the Lintons, they have like these moments uh where Heathcliff like covers her eyes to shade her from the rain at parts. Like little things like that, I thought were so good. Like between them when they're just like bantering about whatever, Kathy's like making fun of him for, I don't know, being big and dumb or whatever she says to him. And he's just like,
Mhm.
quietly sassing back to him, but also just like these like very small caring things he does,
Mhm.
and it was just like that was very good. Before
Yes.
they all the Lintons of it all. Um, I I'm trying to remember, is do they see when they go from being the kids to Margot and Jacob, um do they have that same, do you remember if they see the Lintons first and then we get all the other Wuthering Heights stuff, or is it other Wuthering Heights stuff then we see the Lintons? Do you know the order?
It's it's other stuff and then the Lintons, because
Okay.
I think it's that the Lintons have recently moved. They have new neighbors, and by neighbors
Hmm.
that means like however many miles are actually between the Heights and the Grange. And Kathy really wants them to visit, and they won't visit. So she's like
Hmm.
in a
Oh
bad
yeah.
mood because of that.
Hmm. Yes.
But then it's a while until she actually makes the journey to
Over
go
there.
see them. Yeah.
Yeah. So they don't visit them when they're up on the moors and they're watching the like caravan of movers moving it towards the Grange, and they
Yeah.
have that little moment of like, what would you do when you're married? And I like how they play this between them because Kathy is obviously, she's talking about how she must marry rich if she was rich because of they're obviously very poor at Wuthering Heights. The house is like crumbling, you know, possibly most likely due to the dad's alcoholism and spending and gambling. So she's like talking about that, dream of marrying rich and being taken care of, but she's saying it in a way that's obviously supposed to like antagonize Heathcliff. And I love that Heathcliff doesn't like fall for it. And he's like, well, if I get married, I'm going to marry a lady and we'll have kids. And I guess I'll work on the house. Like, all right. And she's like, what? You're gonna marry someone? That's not me. Like, she doesn't say that, but that's obviously the emotion. And I do like that they set that up early and that it's less inconspicuous that they have feelings for each other because it's very
Hmm.
obvious. And especially with
Hmm.
the whole "this is the greatest love story ever told" promo of this movie, they had to make it like not nuanced.
Yes. Like hit the audience over the head with
Mhm.
the signs of attraction.
Yes. Yeah. And then I don't know, I don't remember exactly the timeline, but then we get the part before she meets the Lintons because Heathcliff sleeps over like the horse shed and she goes up to like talk to him or
Hmm.
something, um, or like leave an egg. Oh yeah, they do that prank where they leave a raw egg on their bed and then they sit
Hmm.
on it. And
Yep.
so the cracking of the egg, I think
More gooey, gross imagery.
yes. Yes. And so she's up there, I don't know, to like mess with Heathcliff or something. But as she's up above like the horse shed, I forget the fancy word for where you store your horse supplies. There's a word for it. I can't
Stable.
remember. Not stable. There's a specific word for all the where all the like leather and bridles and all of
Oh,
that. Um, because there's a scene in red, white, and royal blue, which is why I'm thinking about it because they go in that scene and have a steamy moment in that scene or in
ooh,
that. And
intertextuality.
yeah, look at that. I know when I saw, and that is when I saw the horse bridle and her like peeking through the floorboard, I was like, this is like a red, white, and royal blue. It wasn't, but I was just like, oh. Anyways, there's a word for that. But she's like watching. She's supposed to be, and I didn't buy this because again, Margot Robbie is not 18, but she's supposed to be like not seen any much sexual nature stuff because she, she's not high class, but she is the firstborn of this man. She has some sort of standing in society versus the people who work at Wuthering Heights.
Hmm.
And so she is more, uh, what's the word? My words are not here today. What's the word? Sheltered. That's the word. She is more
Mm,
sheltered than,
yes.
the stable hands and even Heathcliff at this point and the other people in the house. And so we have one of the like cooks or maids and the character Jacob, who is way
Joseph.
different. Joseph, thank you. Joseph is way different than
Yes,
the book.
and he's played by the actor that plays one of the like really evil Targaryens in House of the Dragon. For any
Is he?
House of the Dragon watchers. Yes, he plays, I think he's Aemond. He's the one. Now, I don't want to give House of the Dragon spoilers because it's very good. Highly recommend. But yes, he plays one of the Targaryens.
I'm curious.
Yeah.
Who
If you look him up,
plays
he's the one that has the eye patch.
Joseph? Oh, that guy?
Hmm.
No way.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, you barely see him, and his hair's not blonde. Oh, that's definitely him.
Yeah, he looks very different, but I'm like,
He
it was
looks
an uncanny
very
moment.
different.
I'm very good with faces, and I'm like, I've seen
Hmm.
that face before, but I could not tell you where. And then I think I saw a red carpet photo later, and it had the actor's name, and I'm like, okay, that name is ringing a bell. And then I made the association.
That's wild.
I know. Anyway, tangent, but
Yeah, goodness. Kathy's having like this voyeur like moment where she's watching Joseph and this maid like have sex and there's like the bridle and like whips because they're sitting with all the equipment that they use for horses for riding.
hmm.
And so it's not just that she's watching because I'm sure she's seen like animals have sex because they live on the farm, you know.
Hmm.
But so we're assuming this is her first time ever seeing any sort of intercourse of humans. And it's this like, not vanilla scene. That's very like, it has the leather, it has the bridle like the in her mouth. It's
Hmm.
more kinky than the average, I guess, thing that she would see. Maybe she probably wouldn't have seen anything anyways until her wedding day. Um,
Hmm.
but then, so she's watching it, but then suddenly Heathcliff covers her eyes and he's laying on top, like on her
Hmm.
back, and covers her mouth too. And this part, I was like, okay, now Emerald Fennel is kicking up the gear. Like
Hmm.
it's for until this moment, it's been just kind of besides that intro scene, it's been just like a whatever, not whatever, but just like run of the mill historic history romance setup. of the movie.
Hmm.
Um, and so here's where, like, I think for me at least, I was like, oh, this is going to be something different,
Hmm.
finally. And when I was watching this in the movie theater, there was like squeals from the girls in the behind me. Like, it was like, they're like, I was like, guys, calm down. Um, but this, I do. I do like that the use of mirroring that we see this essentially kind of happen later on in a different way in the movie. I just, this they have this like tension between them here. She runs out to the moors later. He like tries to go follow her and
Hmm.
like she's like, she's like touching herself and he like sneaks up on her and she's like all embarrassed by it. And it's, it's so explicit compared to the novel.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I don't think it's a wrong take on it because she's trying to tell just the love story that is barely, we argued last week, kind of, that is barely there. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and also, I thought a lot, especially the more I've reflected on this movie, how it really capitalizes on the instability of Nellie's narration in the book. Like we have very little. We're getting such a mediated version of what happened at Wuthering Heights. We're getting it from Lockwood, who's getting it from Nellie, who may or may not have seen things, may or may not be embellishing. So to a certain extent, like there could have been all kinds of things going on that we just don't know. It's a very what actually happened and what we're receiving. There's a lot of distance between those things. So I think some of what Emerald Fennell is able to explore kind of is aligned with that. Like if Nellie was, filling in, putting herself in scenes where she wasn't really there, maybe there was some more going on with Heathcliff and Kathy that she just didn't want to talk to Lockwood about because she's a lady and or she's not a lady, but she's a a proper woman. She wouldn't talk about anything explicit with him. Um so I think that there's much about the movie that does not feel plausible to the world of the novel at all. But I do think
Mhm.
that some of the sexual encounters that Heathcliff and Kathy may or may not have had, I certainly think that the text, uh, Bronte's text leaves a lot of room open for that. Whether or not that was Bronte's intention, obviously we'll never know what her intentions were. It's why it's called the intentional fallacy. We
Mhm.
can't argue an interpretation of a text according to the intentional fallacy where we're saying, this is what the author meant the text to be, thus this is the only way we can interpret the text. Um, but I think that the instability of the different accounts being layered on top of each other, like there's so many things that could not be carried over to the reader with that kind of
Mhm.
story that we're receiving.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I watched a TikTok somewhere. If I find it, I'll put it in the show notes. I don't know if I can find it. But someone was pointing out, like we didn't talk about this in the novel episode last week, but in Emily Bronte's writing, in her vernacular, she used the word ejaculated, but it means something different in the Victorian times. It means to like
Hmm.
talk a lot, essentially, to express yourself very loudly. And she was talking about how a lot of people who have been reading Wuthering Heights leading up to this movie have not have that full context, and so they're thinking other like more modern, definition of that word. And I
Yeah.
think when it comes to how this movie is marketed, the combo of people not having the full context of the vernacular used and Emerald Fennell's like essentially agreeing like yes, this is a very sexual tension romance movie. I think it's
Hmm.
very interesting, and I don't know. I don't know what totally think about it, but I saw that TikTok and if I find it, I'll send it to you. But it was like this person
Yes,
breaking
too.
down and it's like she also adds in like some media literacy stuff into it. And especially as we get into the second half of this oldest, like at the second two-thirds, honestly, this movie is so long.
It
Was
is
one of
really
my other
long.
issues. It's like this movie, especially for only being not even half the book, it
Yeah.
was very long. But like the rest of it, I think it goes further and further from the source material.
Hmm.
And I think, in the context of a movie made in 2026 with our media literacy and in general just changing so much with TikTok and short form media. I think that
Mhm.
affects the rest of the movie specifically. And so that TikTok really just like, I don't know, stirred up some thoughts of my, I was like, of how I
Yeah.
saw the book and this movie. Kathy does go over to the Lintons to finally go and to meet them. And she kind of does it to like kind of like make Heathcliff mad almost because they have this almost moment where they're going to like, where she's thinking sexual thoughts, the moment where he was like covering her eyes when she was watching, you know, that scene with Joseph and the
Hmm.
maid. And she goes over because she's like, well, I'm gonna get out of Wuthering Heights. I'm gonna get money. I'm going to change my life. Like, I'm gonna do this.
Hmm.
And she goes over there and she's like trying to climb this wall. And we get our first view at Edgar and Isabella
Hmm.
at the Grange. And it's their backyard. And the Grange in general, as like a location, is wild in this movie for so many reasons.
Yeah.
And we're just seeing the backyard at this point, and Isabella's in these big frilly bows and these few dresses. We haven't even talked about costumes. Oh my goodness.
The costumes are insane.
Insane. And they're one of the reasons why I was so excited for the movie because everyone's like, they're not historically accurate. I was like, no, they're not. And they look great. Like,
Yes.
yeah, it's
They're
like
incredible.
they're incredible. And this movie doesn't need to be historically accurate because nothing else is accurate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
It's a fantasia of
Yes.
Wuthering Heights. It's not a one-to-one at all, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the Kathy's costumes at Wuthering Heights, like she only wears like red, whites, and blacks, and her outfits at Wuthering Heights is more accurate to what not accurate, but more accurate than what she wears the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, but we do see like the same like skirts. We do see her repeating outfits at Wuthering Heights, which makes sense because you'd only have a few outfits because clothes are expensive. And
Hmm.
they do go to pains to point out that Edgar got his money through selling velvet and other fabrics.
Hmm.
So I think that is like their like loophole of like, okay, now she can wear ridiculous clothes because he's in the fashion world.
Right. I didn't make that connection. I mean, I knew like he's obviously they're setting up as someone who's very
Mhm,
wealthy and is
mhm,
able to give her a lot of things, ultimately when they end
mhm,
up getting married, which is
mhm.
true to the book. They do get married
Yeah.
eventually. But I didn't think about him being like in textiles and that being a part of it. That makes total
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah. And I loved when Kathy is like looking over the garden hedge or wall, and Isabella freaks out and says that she saw a ghost. Like we don't get ghosts in this movie, but we do get it when
Mhm.
Isabella sees it, and I thought that was fun.
Yeah. It's a
She's
little
like,
little
"It's a
carryover
ghost."
from the book when we see
Yeah.
Kathy in the window and like here she's peeping her over the
hmm
garden wall.
hmm And they take her in because she falls and hurts her ankle, so she's there for weeks, like in the book.
Hmm.
And
Oh, one
yeah.
other difference that we should remark on, and I'm not really sure why they did this or why Emerald
hmm
Fennel did this, but Isabella and Edgar are not siblings in
hmm
this version. Isabella is his ward.
hmm
Which often is a euphemism in the 19th century for illegitimate child.
Yeah.
Um, so like in Jane Eyre, Edward Rochester, the protagonist, or not the protagonist, but the romantic match for the main character has a ward, and it's suggest very heavily suggested that the girl that he's taking care of is his biological
hmm
daughter. But there's
hmm
no way that that could be the case here because they're very close in age. So it's kind of unclear why
It's like, why do they do
Edgar,
that? hmm
yeah, like why does he have a ward?
hmm
I don't know. Did you have any
I
clarity as to why that might have been the case, or were you also kind of
I
confused?
think I think I was confused, but like the two ideas that came to my head when I was thinking about it, I think it's her trying to avoid as much incestual discussion as she could because, if they were to keep book accurate relations of the characters, people would be like, so you want them to have sex with their siblings and then to marry their cousins, if Heathcliff was Kathy's
Mm,
sibling. You know what I mean? So like they make sure that
yeah,
there's separate. I mean, we do see I would say there's no implication in this movie that Heathcliff is related biologically to her, right? And
no.
so I think I think that's part of the reason because if then it adds some weird play if they were siblings, kind of, but not necessarily
Mhm.
if Isabel and Edgar were siblings. And um, I think also my other hypothetical thought is because Emerald Fennell was like, I'm going to cast I wish he was my boyfriend, Jacob Elordi, as whitewashed Heathcliff, and then I'm going to colorblind cast the rest of the cast.
Mm.
So they have, Nellie's, the actress who plays Nellie's, of Asian descent, and the actor who plays Edgar, I believe he's British, but I think he's also Indian, he's
Yeah, I think he's
Pakistani.
South Asian.
Yeah, he's Pakistani. Um,
Hmm.
and so I think this is one of the biggest issues of the movie and one of the biggest criticisms is she was like, oh, well, I'm not gonna have I'm gonna have a white Heathcliff because that's what I imagined when I was 14 and I love Jacob Elordi. And then she's like, oh, but I'm gonna colorblind cast everyone else. The two actors of color are playing the two characters who are kind of seen in like negative light, right? We have Nellie, who has kind of a villain ish edit. The storyline kind of points her. She's at fault to a lot of the bad things. Not all of the bad things. She's not the villain, but it's more definitive of Nellie's role in the story than it is in the book, right? She does very bad things, not very bad things. She does things that end up leading and contributing to, spoiler, Kathy's death, right? So she's kind of seen in a
Yeah,
negative light in general. And then
yeah.
we have Edgar, who he's rich, and yes, he marries Kathy, and he doesn't do anything bad, but he's also not seen as desirable, specifically not sexually desirable by Kathy.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah,
the color blind casting of those two characters, even though those actors did a great job, especially the actress that plays Nellie, phenomenal in this movie.
yeah,
She's amazing. I mean,
yeah.
she's been nominated for Oscars, so like she's very talented. So like,
Hmm.
yes, they're talented actors, but because they're in those parts and the other characters or actors are all white, it does affect how we in who live in a society that have lots of different societal issues that we all take when we watch movies because no one can watch a movie without any sort of bias or any sort of no context at all. It does
Yeah,
affect that. And the color blindness, it's like one thing to be like, oh, we cast them because they're good actors, whatever, the skin color doesn't matter. But then they go and make a skin room where they know how to make the skin match Margot Robbie's skin perfectly. It's like, oh, but
hmm,
you do know that skin color does matter because you made a whole room about it, not for the point of race issues, for other sexy, quote, sexy,
yeah,
points, and so that's what the biggest thing for this movie. And I think anyone who has issues with these things is like, yes, that's valid, very valid. And I think,
yeah,
especially with a white director, white producers, like, it's just, I don't know. It's not good. That part of the movie, not good.
agreed.
Yeah. And so those are like, the biggest issues I personally have with this movie, besides that just the pacing being weird and the story, I don't know. Like some parts I'm like, be weirder, be freakier. And some parts I'm like, that was pointless freakiness.
Yeah,
You know, like it's not a perfect movie at all, but I do find it interesting that, she made a big deal about not casting Heathcliff as a actor of color and then the color blindness and then the skin room. And I'm like, what? Choose a lane, lady.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I do wonder a little bit, not obviously like the colorblind casting is totally
Mhm.
an issue, but I do wonder if with the kind of movie Emerald Fennell made, if she had cast a non-white actor as Heathcliff, how that would have read in terms of the historical
Yes.
context of British
Hmm.
imperialism
Hmm.
and the way that he and Kathy are kind of, she's sort of the dom and he's sort of the sub. I
Hmm.
could see that potentially playing into narratives about, sort of
Exactly.
racial hierarchies that would be
Hmm.
uncomfortable to probe. I'm not saying that's an excuse not to
Hmm.
cast Heathcliff as having an actor of color playing him, but that is something that I wondered, like, how could that be done in a
Yes.
way that would do justice to the realities? And her movie is such a fantasy that I wonder if that wouldn't kind of come off as sort of sort of flippant and
Hmm.
careless if it wasn't done in just the right way. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
I agree. And I've thought about this too. I don't think I would have trusted her to have a Heathcliff who wasn't white because I
Yeah.
don't think I trust her with handling race issues. And again, I don't know much about
Mhm.
her. I know that people have had similar issues with her, with Saltburn, I believe,
Yeah,
specifically.
I remember that discourse. I've seen Saltburn, and there
Yeah.
is a character. There's like one character of color, and there were some.
Hmm.
I don't remember particulars, but there definitely
Hmm.
were some aspects of the his plot lines that
Yeah.
people had some very, I think, just criticisms of.
Yeah. And with if she was going to make a more accurate Wuthering Heights in general, and we'll, as we get to the last third of the movie, when Heathcliff has his like villain moments in the movie,
Hmm.
they're way more his villainous moments in the movie are like barely problematic, honestly, compared to the book specifically, because like he
Yeah.
murders a dog in the book, you know, like
Hmm.
um so even with I don't want to use the word neutered, but almost kind of like a neutered Heathcliff, if he wasn't, Jacob Elordi, I don't think Emerald Fennell would have been able to still handle it, the topics as well. Because she, again, like we kind of mentioned earlier, she barely dives into the themes of class. Like it's there to be the
Hmm.
conflict of why they can't marry,
Yeah.
but it's barely touched on. And like it is as far as, the houses, but
Mhm.
it's very shallow of a critique on classism, in my opinion. Um, it's
Agreed.
like in very like kind of basic, which that's not what she's trying to make. She wants to make a horny movie where she gets to see her favorite characters, you know, yearn for each other. That's what she wants to make,
Hmm.
and what she did. But yeah, so with that's why I think I've been thinking a lot about this movie is because I don't know if I trust Emerald to make the movie about race, and I kind of glad she didn't. But in her avoiding to make a movie about race, there's still some big flups that she, you know what I mean? Like that the
Yeah.
avoiding of it did not actually avoid it, because of course it
Hmm.
wouldn't in this world that we live in. But I don't know. Yeah, I think a different director would have been able to handle it and would be willing to try and handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of briefly address some of the other critiques that I've seen that I think are
Mhm.
very legitimate, both Edgar and Nellie, being played by actors of color, people have pointed out how, because of that casting, that those characters have ended up falling into various negative stereotypes.
Mhm.
So with Nellie being kind of the mastermind, there's the stereotype of the kind of crafty and sly Asian character, and
Mhm.
people have critiqued it for kind of the villain edit that you were talking about, sort of
Mhm.
aligning with that. um and there's a long tradition, in Imperial Britain of desexualizing and kind of making effeminate the idea of South Asian men.
Mhm.
And you have Edgar being this, as you mentioned, being portrayed as a very, a non-desirable character.
Mhm.
So that the racial identity of the actors is not neutral because of those, received racist narratives and stereotypes. And that's something that Emerald Fennell isn't interested in grappling with because, as
Yeah.
we've talked about, this is Kathy and Heathcliff. They're the point of the
Mhm.
story. So that
Mhm.
means that those the other characters end up kind of being, flattened characters. And for that reason, with the casting and the racial narratives that are often attributed to those kinds of characters, they end up being neglected and not being done justice.
Yes. Yeah, no, totally. And, you know, it's and they're also compared to the other three characters, they're barely on screen. And when they are on
Yeah.
screen, they are literally in the background or in the shadows. And especially with the changes that they do to Isabella, she's way more prominent in this story, even though
Mhm.
most of her story happens later. I don't know. It's just very interesting choices in general. Kathy does end up marrying Edgar, and her wedding dress with that like veil, it was like she looks like a ghost and was like fluid and like liquid
Mhm.
almost. I loved it. And it's like
Yeah.
the most the most inaccurate wedding dress of all time for a Victorian wedding dress. but God,
Hmm.
was it beautiful.
It was. It was
Yeah.
breathtaking. There was like a shot of
Mhm.
her walking toward the church. You never actually see the wedding, but it's like she's wearing her dress and walking toward the like church on the moors, and it just seeing it on the big screen, like I think it was
Yes.
moments like that. The cinematography and just the aesthetics
Hmm.
of the movie were so engaging to me, and very, very enveloping. And I was just kind of, it felt like a fairy tale at multiple
Yes.
different moments. And that felt like a tableau that came out of like a very sumptuous
Hmm.
fairy tale to me.
Yeah, especially this middle third. This middle third to me, like the first third was like her setting up Wuthering Heights in a very
Hmm.
like classic, oh, a movie about Wuthering Heights way. The middle third to me is what if Emerald Fennell directed a Charlie XCX music video? And I mean that as the biggest compliment because
Oh,
it was
yeah.
gorgeous, each scene. The Grange, it is the Grange, it's wild and it's, very obvious like there's the skin room, there's the fireplace with the hands. It's like, oh yes, rich people earn money on the backs and bodies of other people. There's that like, oh yeah, look at her trying to make a critique about classism. But again, it's very shallow, and
Right.
very literal, but makes for great cinematic set pieces. Um,
Hmm.
the montage of um Kathy and all of her outfits like that. There's that leather dress, and then she's wearing those small little red sunglasses at one point. I was obsessed with that montage. Again, it's just a music video, and
Hmm.
in a complimentary way. It's just a music video.
Yeah.
And then as she's like getting comfortable at the Grange, we have Isabella comes way more into play. And Isabella's
Hmm.
character in this movie, I kind of loved. I do wish they did more towards the end with her, but she's like obsessed with Kathy at the beginning. She's
Hmm.
obsessed, and she has this dollhouse of the Grange, and she makes her a freaky little doll. And I
Hmm.
wish they had I think she had such great opportunity to do so much with that dollhouse. Like, I
Hmm.
wished they had that Isabel was like, because she is essentially stalking and obsessed. Like, she's obsessed with Kathy at the beginning.
Hmm.
And I wish they had put that more throughout the movie. I wish the obsession was still there from Isabella. I think it would have been like she has that one moment where she does kind of like rip up Kathy's doll in the dollhouse, but I wish they did more play on that to make it more spooky, like because that's like a great horror
Hmm.
movie setup.
It's one of the many cases where like she's doing something interesting with the side characters, like, maybe an analog would be Nellie having a backstory, which I think was really
Hmm.
interesting. But
Hmm.
ultimately, Emerald Fennell isn't interested in those characters, so their character arcs are only going to go so far.
Yep.
And so that was another thing where it's like if Isabella had been centered more as a character, maybe more of that could have been explored. But since the focus needed to be Kathy and Heathcliff, like the movie had been
Hmm.
marketed, like everyone was walking in wanting it to be, the Titanic of 2026. Like nobody
Hmm.
else is going to have the same kind of capital on the screen. They're not as important.
Hmm. Yeah. I I agree. And I especially with Isabella and like a lot of people did not like what she did with Isabella and like how Isabella's story ends. I kind of have positive and negative opinions about it, but I do like in general that they made Isabella a little freak. I thought that was so good. Like they like because the book has so much violence and abuse in it
Hmm.
that because we are getting violence and abuse from um Kathy's dad. We're not really getting violence and abuse really from other people at this point. So we need
Hmm.
something else to add. And I think the freakiness of Isabella and the unsettlingness of the Grange in general was a good substitute for the
Agreed.
violence. Yeah. When Heathcliff comes back and Jacob Elordi has a gold tooth and that like little earring, I was just like, should I go watch Euphoria? I've never watched Euphoria. I don't want to watch Euphoria, but I heard he's in it. And I was like, maybe I'm not gonna watch it. Um, but when he comes back, and I was like, I'm sold. I get it now. I get why
The
Emerald casted him.
the girls in the theater, like everyone was like screamed almost. Like
Hmm.
the whole like when he walked on, because he's very like scraggly in the first part. Like he has a kind of a bad
Hmm.
wig. He's got like this long scrappy beard. Like he's Jacob Elordi, so he doesn't look horrible. Like he still
Yeah.
looks good. But then
Yeah.
when he comes in clean shaven and it's like the chiseled jawline, the whole effect,
Hmm.
like everybody was like feral
Yeah.
immediately.
Yeah. And he comes back in and he has like this swagger, and Kathy immediately is like she's come back to life because we see her in that montage, like, she's comfortable, she has these gorgeous gowns, but she's slowly like losing energy. She's losing her personality,
Mhm.
her bite that she has in the first part of the movie. And then he comes back in and he's at dinner, and she's like trying to like engage him in conversation, and he's like very like, oh, we forgot it. We skipped the whole why he left. That's a very important part of this
Oh,
movie. Yeah.
yes. We can backtrack. I
Let's
mean,
backtrack.
that
Yeah.
part's fairly similar to the book. I'd say that's one of the
Hmm.
episodes that was very similar. So we have Kathy talking to Nellie, telling her how she feels about Heathcliff, but how it would degrade her to marry Heathcliff. Heathcliff overhears. We have, though, and this is part of Nellie's villain edit, is that she very consciously tries to, like, she sees Heathcliff outside and she prompts Kathy to say, it's hard to like put into
Yeah.
words, but she basically like frames it so he overhears her saying that. Like
Hmm.
Nellie is trying to drive a wedge between the two of them.
Hmm.
So Heathcliff misunderstands. He doesn't stay for the part where Kathy says, "But I love him." He just hears that it would degrade me to marry Heathcliff, and then he leaves for
Hmm.
3 years or whatever
Yeah.
it is.
And I think a lot of people, you know, not a lot of people. I think the people who have not read the book and were like, how dare Nellie do this? I don't think they remember that Nellie is also stuck at Wuthering Heights, and she can
Hmm.
only leave Wuthering Heights if Kathy marries Rich. So
Hmm.
it's not just Nellie. There is some sort of like angst between the three of them. Then there is
Yeah.
some sort of Nelly being like, "You guys were rude for me. You pushed me aside when he came in, that your new shiny toy. So yes, I
Hmm.
am gonna be kind of like a bitchy sister right now and do this." But also, I don't fault her for wanting to leave the Grange and leave her abusive caretaker of
Hmm.
whatever he is to her, the Kathy's dad. So that's why she wants, and that's why she does it ultimately.
Hmm.
Um, but I think towards the end of the movie, they kind of forget that part, and they forget that why she is trying to not be at Wuthering Heights, with Nellie specifically, not with Kathy. They don't forget that with Kathy. They don't forget that with
Hmm.
Heathcliff, but they don't bring back the trauma that Nellie had to endure as well.
Hmm.
And which I think is just poor writing, kind of, and
Yeah.
directing in that way. But again, it's because she only cares about Kathy and Heathcliff as a director,
Hmm.
which is
Yep.
why she should have just made a Kathy and Heathcliff movie. Ah.
Yeah. Just like that.
um, yeah. But anyway, so that's why Heathcliff leaves. Um,
Hmm.
but when he's at dinner, I love that we also see Isabella like slowly turning her outfits and how she does her hair slowly towards how Kathy does or prefers to wear her hair and makeup, or her hair and clothes, even though Isabella does do Kathy's hair often because she's obsessed with her and like even steals some of her hair at one point for the doll. Again, I love freaky Isabella in this movie. I wish they kept it. Ah. Which they
Yeah.
kind of do. Eh. But we also see her like fall for, like the rest of us fall for Heathcliff as he's come back, a changed, rich, successful man. Um, and Edgar, I love that they don't make Edgar jealous right away. I think
Hmm.
that was so good for them to like, Edgar has trust in Kathy. Like they do have a actual relationship. It's not just rich
Yeah.
husband, hot wife. There is something
Hmm.
there.
Differently than in the book, Edgar has not met Heathcliff.
Hmm.
Because in the book we have a more extended courtship where Edgar comes to the Heights multiple times, and they have the whole applesauce incident, which we covered in our past episode, where Heathcliff throws applesauce on Edgar. They have no beef at this point. All he knows is just, Kathy's kind of surrogate brother. He used to live with them at the Heights. He's rich, so it's not like shameful to receive him in his home. And
Hmm.
he has absolutely no reason to think that he poses a threat
Hmm.
to his and Kathy's relationship.
And I think this is interesting that they chose to do that. I think it makes sense in this version of the story, but Heathcliff's revenge is not really a part of Heathcliff in this movie. Like, yes,
Hmm.
he has like anger towards Kathy's dad, understandably, and does eventually like, he manipulates the dad. He doesn't, I don't think, abuse him. He just manipulates him, but like I think that's fair due to the abuse that he has to deal with.
Yeah,
Um, but I do think that them taking away Heathcliff's need for revenge on Kathy's dad, on Hindley, who doesn't exist in this movie, on the Lintons, both of them. I think taking away that revenge does soften Heathcliff a lot in this movie, and I kind of
absolutely.
don't love that. Like, then it's like just very obvious he's just coming back for Kathy,
Hmm.
and even though he knows Kathy's married. So what's he doing back? Like it's just because he loves her that much, which I get, but like, 'cause it's such a like 17-year-old's version of love, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and this, like, we can talk about this. I think another way that Heathcliff gets really softened, which I know we're getting maybe a bit ahead of ourselves, but his relationship
Mhm.
with Isabella is also very much changed to make it non-abusive later on. And I think that's part and parcel of kind of the broader sort of transformation of Heathcliff into a romantic hero that we can get behind. Um, and to make him abusive, to make him a complicated character would be to make it harder for the viewers to relate to and kind of aspire to the romantic
Mhm.
potential or the romantic kind of pinnacle of Heathcliff and Kathy's relationship. I think Emerald Fennell went to great lengths to make any changes necessary to make their love, and as we talked about in the last episode, what's represented in the book is arguably not love. It
Mhm.
is intense passion and intense connection and attachment, but whether or not it's love, that's definitely up to interpretation. But here, she's telling a love story,
Mhm.
and she will make any changes necessary to either character, I think,
Mhm.
to create that effect, to make it that kind of movie.
Yeah. And again, I believe Heathcliff is fully in love with Kathy in this movie.
Hmm.
I don't believe Kathy is fully in love with Heathcliff in this movie. I think she is
Mm.
sexually attracted to Heathcliff, and I think that she has a lot of like what ifs and regrets as far as their relationship. And which leads her and her uncomfortableness of being at the Grange. She doesn't like the actual reality of being rich and being this doll in this dollhouse, essentially.
Hmm.
And her and Edgar do have a supportive relationship, but they don't have a passionate relationship. And
Hmm.
so I don't think Kathy actually does love Heathcliff in this movie. Again, I think she has a passion and has like the sexual tension is there.
Hmm.
And especially in the rest of the third in this movie of her choices up to in this movie. But I found that very, interesting that here again, I don't believe Kathy's love. Whereas I didn't in the book either. Um,
Hmm.
but uh Kathy becomes obsessed and her obsession is more prominent here than it is in the book. And in the book, it's Heathcliff's obsession with Kathy. Here, Kathy's obsessed with getting and obtaining Heathcliff, and also the escaping of the Grange, and having that desire. Also important, they make a big point to mention that she is pregnant before Heathcliff returns.
Yes,
And I
but
do
she does
think
not
it's good
tell
that they
him.
did that. Yeah. She does not tell
Hmm.
him, and Nellie even like is like, did you tell him? Like, because they start sneaking around and having sex in carriages and on the moors, and he comes into her bedroom and the skin room. The skin room? I hated the skin room.
It wasn't it, yeah. I wondered, do you think we were supposed to hate it? Were we supposed to be kind of repelled by it? Was it meant to kind of elicit the same kind of disgust or kind of uncomfortability like the other, all of the
Hmm.
goo and the
Yeah.
slime and the all of that?
I think Emerald Fennell's idea of what's hot, it's something that's mostly gross, but a little bit sexy. I think that's what she loves because that's what this movie is. It's mostly gross in those bits, but a little bit sexy.
That's a good way of putting it.
You know, just like yeah.
Mhm.
And I think the skin room is that, and like watching the behind the scenes, TikToks and Instagrams and whatever reels they've been making, they talked about how they like kind of accidentally found that this combo of fabrics made the same skin color as Margot Robbie's skin, and they're like, okay, let's do it, and then let's make this vein and this mole that looks just like on Margot Robbie's body. It's like, okay, guys. So like, I mean, I do appreciate doing like fashion and like design just for the sake of doing it because it looks cool. I do appreciate
Mhm.
that about this movie a lot. But like a whole skin room, and that's kind of really the only reason why it's there. Like there's not like a deeper, I don't know. I felt like she could have made it more integral to the themes of the movie besides just
Yes.
sexy.
Yes. And I think at the end, when again, getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but you
Hmm.
probably heard the first podcast, so you know what happens in general. When Kathy's dying in this room, and she ends up having going into septic shock. And I think it would have been interesting if the walls of the room had changed to
Yes.
reflect her like skin discoloration. That would have been so
Hmm.
creepy and
Hmm.
gothic. And like,
Hmm.
as she's like, she's rapidly changing because she's dying and her body is, is changing as well. It would have been interesting to have that be reflected on the walls and really go the
Yes.
full distance of kind of the grossness and like the
Yeah.
like fine line that Emerald Fennel is walking between grotesque and sexy and just going into the full like grotesque
Hmm.
gothic kind of
Yeah.
sensibility. But
Yeah, because I feel like, especially with that would have made more sense. That is what I was expecting, especially with that opening scene with the guy who was getting hanged, because it's
mhm,
like it is grotesque, but also people are finding sexual desire and pleasure with it.
mhm,
And I think the ratio of the grotesque and the sexy that Emerald Fennel is defining for us, I think it's more of the sexy and less of the grotesque. And I think she thought it was the opposite, but I don't think it quite gets there, which again,
yeah,
I'm kind of glad because I didn't really want to see a lot of gross stuff because I'm very squeamish. But
mhm,
like it was a little bit disappointing, but also intriguing. I was just like, I wish, and I think that's a part of
mhm,
why I enjoy this movie is that I can see a version of this movie where it does go the full 9 yards, and I'm like, wow, all the different themes, and it's changing, and it's weird,
yeah,
and doesn't really make sense, but that is adds to the like supernatural of it all, and it
yeah,
doesn't quite get there, but it still makes me think about those things and what it could be, and so I still enjoyed it. But I also know in a
yes.
world they had the budget, they had Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi, they had the budget, they could have done it.
Hmm. I did
Yeah.
wonder. I did wonder were those actors, if they had it in their contract, they weren't going to do nudity, which makes a lot of sense. I know there are a lot of actors who just choose not to do that. 100%
Hmm.
respect that decision. But I wonder if for that reason, Margot Robbie's like, I need these actors. I want to make this a very sexy movie. But since, if, hypothetically they don't have that in their contract, like we need to like make this happen in other ways.
Yeah.
Um, so I wondered if that was maybe part of it, that it didn't kind of live up to sort of what I think was suggested by the trailers, like you would expect there to
Hmm.
be, and like the rating of it. Like I think strong sexual content was in the rating, and like there
Yeah.
is, but not in the ways that often people expect.
Yeah. Because there is a
Um,
montage of them having sex, but there's no nudity. It's a lot of
no,
skirts and a lot of
yeah,
hiding in skirts, which
and
is
yeah,
accurate to the time,
hmm,
but there's like, and even Heathcliff's back is a back double. So even I was looking that up. I was like, it
oh,
popped up on
interesting.
TikTok. Yeah, it's a back double. Um,
Mm,
and so I was like, okay, so probably in the contracts, and also it's probably easier to film,
yeah,
but like, and emphasize and adds to like the repression of sexuality in the first half of the movie that then propels Kathy to go and actually chase down Heathcliff finally.
Hmm.
So I get that we want the repression so that the payoff is bigger. But then with them having a montage of sex, the payoff did not seem as impactful.
Yeah, it kind of went from like nothing to like a lot,
Yeah.
like the film's version of a lot really fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. It didn't, I feel like the tension was built really well. And then it didn't,
Hmm.
the release was not as
Hmm.
like as a kind of carefully crafted as
Hmm.
the build up to all of that.
Yeah. And they end up getting caught and they can no longer, Kathy, isn't it Kathy that says we can't do this any longer?
Yeah, well,
Yeah. Because Nellie,
Nellie
yeah.
tells Edgar about it, and
Hmm.
that's because Kathy tries to fire Nellie,
Yes,
right?
she tries to tell Nellie to go find a new place of work,
Hmm.
which is like, Kathy, where's she gonna go? There's nothing but a village here.
Yeah. And that like going back to what you were saying, the point you made about how Nellie has a vested interest in wanting Kathy to marry Edgar because she's has it really good at the
Hmm.
Grange as well. Like it's a much nicer place to live.
Yes.
She has a higher status. And so she has a very good reason to not want to leave. And her new employer, Mr. Earnshaw was not a good employer, but uh, Edgar Linton is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, she doesn't want to leave because she has a great situation, and why would she? Where would she go at this point?
Yeah. Nellie kind of throws the blackmail back on Kathy, so Kathy like breaks it off with Heathcliff. Um, and Heathcliff immediately goes to Isabella. And this scene
Immediately.
immediately, I loved this scene though. This scene was great because he goes up there and he's like, I'm gonna be horrible to you. Do you want me to stop? I'm doing this to get back at Kathy. Do you want me to stop? And I think this is a great way because we see the manipulation that he is capable of because
Hmm.
he doesn't do anything else problematic besides sleeping with someone else's wife than manipulating. Like he's not
Hmm.
emotionally or physically abusive in this movie because they did kind of cut that back from his character.
Hmm.
He doesn't have that revenge uh, obsession um,
Yeah.
he does in the book. But again, and I think it's because of Jacob Elordi's acting. I was like, I buy it. I'm down. I'm down with this
Yeah.
version. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with Isabella's acting too. She's into it. Because again, Isabella being a
Hmm.
little freak is just a great touch to this movie. Um,
Hmm.
so they get married in an elope, and then we kind of have a more montage of Jacob, not Jacob, I keep calling him Jacob, like I know him. Heathcliff manipulating uh Heathcliff manipulating Isabella to write letters. And it's kind of nuanced at first. We're not sure if like he's actually like hurting her or forcing her. It's slowly revealed that it's more of a deal between them, which I thought
Hmm.
was interesting. But Nellie is trying to talk to Kathy. Kathy has told her that I've lost the baby, but in a way that Nellie doesn't realize is actually real. She just thinks it's Kathy being dramatic and spoiled. At least that's
Yeah.
how I took it.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember the chronology. Does because Heathcliff, Kathy does see him again and tells him that she's or no, I'm remembering it. Sorry, I'm there. There's a
It's fine.
scene where Heathcliff comes back and
Hmm.
he's outside their house and it's the middle of the night. And Kathy sees him, and Edgar does too. And she's like, "Oh, I just want to go
Just
speak
go
to him
out
for a
there.
moment." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Okay,
Yes.
fine." And then they're speaking, and I don't fully remember what happens between them. Is obviously Heathcliff, pleading with her again,
Hmm.
that he loves her and he misses her. And then Edgar opens the door and tells her to come back inside and says,
Hmm.
"Oh, we don't want you don't want to hurt the baby or something." He basically
Yes.
reveals that Kathy's pregnant, and that's the first that Heathcliff hears of it. I think this all
Hmm.
happened before Isabella,
I think
I want to
so.
say.
Because I think Heathcliff goes directly from there to Isabella's room.
Yes. So
Yeah.
he finds out, and then he and Kathy have one final where
Hmm.
he asks like, "Is it mine? Is
Hmm.
the baby mine?" And she says, "No, I was pregnant
Yeah.
before you came back."
Yeah.
And he doesn't care. He's like, "You thought I
Yeah.
would mind? Like, I'm so obsessed with you that it doesn't matter that you're pregnant. Like, I'm obsessed
Yeah.
with you anyway." But she still cuts it off. So
Yeah.
that is kind of I believe their final, like, well, she's
That's
still
their
alive,
final.
their final
eh,
interaction.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that because he's like, okay, I'll take care of it. And like, we know he's rich, we know he's obsessed. So why does she not go with it? It's like in this film's world, like, what's the point of this is the greatest love story ever told? Then why don't they go have their happily ever after? And she says like something, I think she says something like, I got to be here. It's Edgar's, but also we know it's because of Edgar's money and the comfortabilitiness
Mhm.
that she has grown here. But again, because those themes have not been touched on too much besides just visually throughout the movie, it doesn't quite hit quite enough. It's like this
Mhm.
almost is there. It's almost about class. You're almost there. You're, you know,
Mhm.
um, and yeah, and so that, yeah, their final interaction, I guess,
Mhm.
vocal interaction.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then we have the bits about we see Isabella and Heathcliff at Wuthering Heights. Oh, also in this montage before then, her dad dies, that part.
Yeah.
And we see the piles
Mhm.
of bottles in Wuthering Heights. Wuthering Heights is even
Yeah.
worse than it was earlier. She kicks his
Mhm.
dead body, which I think if you're gonna make Kathy that bratty and that emotionally distraught, go further. I think she could have
Yeah.
been more of a bitch
Yeah.
at times. I was like, make her bitchier.
Yeah. Because that feels very spiritual. Like, I totally believe
Yeah,
that Kathy would like kick the dead body of her father.
yeah.
But that wasn't developed. That aspect of her personality wasn't developed as much in the movie.
Hmm.
And her relationship to her father. I mean, it's not in the book a ton, but I think
Yeah,
it certainly doesn't have the depth or
yeah.
the nuance that it does in the movie.
Hmm. I also liked that at the funeral, she wears almost the same outfit of her wedding, except for in black, and she has that black veil, and then
Yeah.
and she has the black veil on, and when she's like kissing and making out with Heathcliff at that little like arch they went to when they were kids. Um,
Hmm.
I really liked that mirroring. And I think this is where we get the mirrored line from Heathcliff too, like there is some blue in the sky, like there is still some hope.
Hmm.
And I also like the symbolism, like, oh, she gets married in life to Edgar, but then married in death to Heathcliff. I thought that was like a fun
Oh, yeah.
visual with the veils. The ending, they're separate. Nellie goes over to check um, on Isabella because she's reading the letters that are addressed to Kathy, but she's not giving them
Hmm.
to her, which again is kind of what what Nellie would do in the books, probably. I don't know if she actually does, I can't remember, but it's something that makes sense to what Nellie would do in the books.
Hmm.
But it adds to the like villain aspect of Nellie here is that we have
Hmm.
Catherine who's pregnant and ill and not eating, withering away at the
Hmm.
window, and she's not getting these letters. And so when Nellie goes to go check in on and get Isabella to bring her home, um, we see Isabella is chained up like a dog to this
Hmm.
fireplace. And Nellie like confronts Heathcliff like, "How dare you? You're a monster. What are you doing?" And he's like, "I'm doing what she wants." And
Hmm.
he like takes the chain off the wall and drops it. And it's like, "Do you want to stay, Kathy?" And Kathy's like crawling on the floor and she like winks at Nellie and she's like barking like a dog. And I, again, Isabella being a little freak. I think this
Hmm.
is really interesting, especially because in the book, Isabella is a victim of domestic abuse and
Hmm.
eventually is able to escape that. Whereas here, there isn't domestic abuse happening, at least that we're not being told to, not, we're not led to think that at all. We know that she's been being like, I'll write these letters if you're kind to me, if you do what I want to me, like there, she has power in their relationship that we see.
Yeah.
And I
Hmm.
think it's very interesting that they led Isabella to that way. A lot of people hated that. I didn't hate it. I kind of liked it for Isabella. I didn't make sense to Heathcliff because Heathcliff's character is, even though I think Jacob Elordi did a great job. I think it's a weird way to end his character that we've not seen him in this way. I don't know.
Hmm.
What are you thinking about that moment?
Yeah.
The dog of it
Yeah.
all.
I wondered, so with Heathcliff and Kathy, it's very much established in there when we have the sexual tension building between the two of them, when they're adults, before he leaves, before she marries Edgar, all of that. um it's very much him wanting to serve her. A
Mhm.
lot of what kind of the visuals of their encounters, like he's like on his knees, he's like he worships her. It's very much like she's, in the dominant position and he's in the
Mhm.
submissive position. And here
Mhm.
the script is flipped. So we have a like kind of BDSM sort of situation where
Mhm.
Isabella is the sub and Heathcliff is the dom. So I wonder if it's like is kind of a way to sort of invert the relationship he had with Kathy. He's trying to sort
Mhm.
of maybe feel power again. And since Isabella equally wants to be in the position she's in, it worked out for both of them. It's mutually a
Yeah.
mutually good experience for the two of them. It's very much framed that way.
Mhm.
So I wonder if that's part of it, that he's trying to recover from the betrayal he feels by Kathy by doing kind of the opposite, having the opposite relationship that they had. But then at the
Mhm.
same time, like his and Kathy's sexual relationship seems pretty, from what we can see, pretty vanilla,
Yeah.
and like nothing
Yeah.
that
Nothing
uh
nothing with chains.
definitely not. That
Yeah.
seems to be, yeah, that whatever hint there was of that being kind of what they were imagining
Mhm.
with each other, whatever hint there was is definitely
Mhm.
not there by the
Yeah.
time that they actually start
Again, Isabella
having
being a
sex.
little freak. I love it. I do wish though they brought in her obsession with Kathy into Isabella and Heathcliff's relationship. Like even if like
Mhm.
just a word or like, if she like was wearing her old clothes, like something weird that like if any other person did it, I'd be like, that is not okay. Like I
Mhm.
wish they had added that freakiness that Isabella had at the beginning of her plot to the end of it. Like they do bring the
Mhm.
freakiness, but not the same kind of freakiness. It's a different,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
I do wish they did that. It would have made more sense, I think, because it goes from her being prim proper rich girl, loves dresses, loves bows and ribbons, loves
Mhm.
this woman Kathy, obsessed with her, then oh, you get her ex essentially. Then you can do more weird things mimicking Kathy. I think that would have been way more
Mhm.
interesting and still freaky in the Emerald Fennel way, you know. Um, but
Mhm.
but
Yeah,
then
because
yeah.
yeah, no, that's interesting because in that way, like both Heathcliff and Isabella would want the other to be Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
they both be like kind of pretending that that's the,
Yeah.
kind of pretending that they're different people, or rather that each other is the same person. Like it could create some
Yeah.
interesting kind of identity uh exploration,
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. Uh I know. I just like I wish it was like a little bit like that because because we have that montage of them hooking up, the like yearning to be with each other. It's like, what is stopping you? I still am not convinced anything is stopping them. Like, if Heathcliff is actually rich, like, yes, her reputation is going to be ruined, but like, does Kathy as a character care about
Hmm.
her reputation? I don't think so compared to other people around her,
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
so as Kathy is going into sepsis, um, we the movie blames Nellie for that because Nellie's like, oh, I didn't realize she actually meant the baby is gone.
Yeah.
When she finds Kathy bleeding in bed.
Mhm.
And the leeches being like beautifully on the wall, I thought
Mhm.
that again, a little freaky, but kind of, I was like, visually, I like the symmetry of it, but also freaky,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
Emerald Fennell. And I thought it was interesting that we have Edgar is able to say goodbye, but Heathcliff doesn't make it in
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
And I don't like that, I think. Or do
Yeah.
I? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I have to ask at this point, I know you haven't
Yeah.
seen Saltburn, but have you heard the like discourse about Emerald Fennell integrating parts of Wuthering Heights into Saltburn, in particular the grave scene?
Yes, the grave scene, yes. Because there's no grave scene in this movie, which I was hoping there was. I was like, she's a little freak. She's gonna put the grave scene. She didn't.
Yes.
But yes,
Surprise.
I have
Yeah,
heard
because
that. Hmm.
yeah, so in Saltburn, slight spoilers, there's a sexually tense relationship. One of the people in it dies. He gets buried. Jacob Elordi, in fact,
Oh,
plays this
look.
character. The reversal. Sorry, big Saltburn spoilers.
Well,
Do watch it.
it's an old
It's a
movie.
weird
Yeah.
movie. I
Yeah.
liked it. But the other character who was obsessed with the Jacob Elordi character basically uh has sex with the like ground above the grave, I think.
Hmm. Hmm.
Basically, that's what's suggested. There's some like necrophilia kind of
Hmm.
stuff going on. And Emerald Fennell talked about how that's what Heathcliff does in Wuthering Heights. Like in interviews, she's like,
Yeah.
I was inspired by this because when Heathcliff digs up Cappy's grave, I always, that's how I interpreted it basically. And she
Hmm.
wanted to put that into Saltburn, which was all her original story. She wasn't adapting anything.
Hmm.
Um, so with Wuthering Heights, people wondered, myself included, like what she would do with that. Would she create a necrophilia kind of
Yeah.
dynamic? But I think to kind of go with what I've been noticing about the changes she's made to Heathcliff, I think to have anything too freaky happen would make it too gross for Heathcliff to still be the romantic hero, because obviously like
Hmm.
necrophilia, very taboo, very,
Hmm.
not something that you want to see your romantic
Hmm.
hero doing. Like, but
Hmm.
I still think that there could have been something interesting with that wouldn't have gone that distance.
Hmm.
And what we do get is a pretty standard, like he just runs in, Kathy's
Yeah.
lying in bed. They've gotten rid of all the blood and everything, but they've got a sheet over her, and he pulls back the sheet and he, weeps and leaves. There's
Hmm.
nothing really that kind of striking about it. It just feels like, the love of his life is dead and now he's bereft.
Yeah.
At least that's how it struck me.
Yeah, exactly. And because it ends there and I mean, we get, I think there's like, isn't there a flashback of them as kids looking at each other or something at the ending? I can't remember if it's just him in with her in her arms. I can't remember quite. But we don't get any ghosts. We don't get the grave scene. We don't get any
Mhm.
post Kathy dying, yearning past him just holding her. I
Mhm.
think, I mean, don't get me wrong. Was I crying at the end? Yes, I was. But I cry at everything movie wise. So it's not it's not a hard to get me to cry in a movie. Um, but I was crying and I had to wait for everyone to leave so that I could leave so they didn't see my faces red from
Tears streaming
crying.
down your face.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But I felt I was left wanting more to the dramatic ending of this movie. I wanted him
Yeah.
being dramatic on the moors or, something. I wanted something else, like a minute or two, even though this movie is way too long. I wanted like a minute or two of him post Kathy. I don't know. I don't know what that would be, especially in how everything else adds up together, but I wanted something. But
Yeah.
that song that plays at the end, because most of the music is like Charlie XCX esque music. I mean, it's stuff she's made, but it's like that kind of
Yeah.
music tonally. There's the song, it's like this ballad. I was trying to find what it's called,
Yeah.
and I loved it.
There were some interesting ballads and like folk
Hmm.
songs that felt like historically like accurate in a way that most of the movie didn't. It's like, oh, this seems like a song that maybe they would have sung in this time period.
Because a lot of it is arranged or by Charlie XCX, which
Hmm.
have you listened to that full album?
I haven't, but I love the songs
The
in the
album is
movie.
good. Honestly, the album's really good because she wrote it inspired by the script. Um,
Hmm.
and I think it's interesting that the script could inspire such good songs because the script
And
is,
it's Charlie
it's a visual,
XCX who like cannot
yes,
do every song she
right?
does is amazing.
Yeah. This is a very like visual movie. It's not the writing, you know. What is the
Yeah.
song though? You know the one I'm talking about? It's like da, 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 and there's like that not accordion. It's an instrument that they did have. Like when the Brontes were alive, they definitely had this instrument. What's it
I'm forgetting
called?
this particular song. I remember them playing a couple different folk songs, but I don't remember the one they play at the end.
I want to find because I found the girl's TikTok that sings it and she was playing it. Folk
Mm.
song, Wuthering Heights. Dark Eyed Sailor.
Oh, yes.
The Dark Eyed Sailor song specifically. Like the ending of this movie with Dark Eyed Sailor, I loved. And I kind of liked that those folk songs that they added were so different from Charlie XCX. It like
Hmm.
really added to the like weirdness of this movie being so modern visually and bright and
Hmm.
colorful with like the gloominess of the moors and of Wuthering Heights, the set. Um, but yeah, but in general, again, like I enjoyed this movie. I think I gave
Hmm.
it 3 stars on Letterboxd. Like it's not like earth-shattering, it's not perfect, but I really enjoyed it.
Yes. I gave it, and I know this is so controversial. I
Yeah.
gave it 4.5 stars on
Oh
Letterboxd.
wow.
I was so prepared. I mean, I was trying to go into it as neutrally as possible. I
Mm-hmm.
was prepared to really
Mm-hmm.
dislike it. And I think that maybe that was like my instant kind of reaction when I
Mm-hmm.
rated it. It was like that evening that I put that in a
Yeah.
letterbox. I might change it a little bit now. I think having read some of the discourse on it, there's
Mm-hmm.
parts of it that critiques of it that I really absolutely agree with. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of on reflection, I've realized, oh, this was flawed or this wasn't done great. But a lot of the discourse about it too, I think is criticizing it for unfair reasons and kind
Mm-hmm.
of getting back to what I was talking about earlier with the intentional fallacy. A lot of people are saying this is not true to Emily Bronte's vision of Wuthering Heights.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of thing that makes me want to pull my hair out because we can never get in the head of these writers. And it's like people who are like weirdly being book purists. And I'm a book purist in many ways, but I also
Mm-hmm.
recognize that that's my own, like, there are certain books I'm really attached to, but do I believe that other people should have creative freedom to interpret these books in other ways?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. As someone who studies Victorian literature, do I think that like people adapting Victorian text in interesting and innovative ways is important now, and that there seems to be kind of a neo-Victorian thing happening right now. I think that's really cool. And I think that people are putting their own spin on things is really interesting. Absolutely. So I've been like, I've encountered, as I said, very like fair criticism, and then I found others that I've just been kind of irritated at, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to finally have an outlet to
Yeah.
discuss it with
Yes.
somebody.
I think she doesn't want to make a perfect adaptation. Obviously, we've, talked about that earlier in the episode, but I think she also wanted to make a messy adaptation. Like she wanted it. Like my review
Yes.
of this was a hot mess because that's what it is. Like literally in the
Hmm.
phrase, it's a messy movie. Like it's not perfect structural wise, but also it's messy on purpose, like the eggs and the goo. It's messy and it's hot.
Yes.
Like so like it
And
is
and
a hot mess.
yes. And it's got
Yeah.
Charlie XCX and it has
Yes.
brat energy.
Yes. And I mean, people are like, yes, Emerald Fennell should just go direct music videos. And I kind of agree with that. I think she'd be an excellent music video director. But like also, I think let her direct movies. Like you don't have to go watch it. That's fine. No one,
Hmm.
this is not a movie for everyone. Definitely not. Um,
Yeah.
but is it a good adaptation?
Is it a good adaptation?
Uh-huh.
That's such a loaded question,
Yes.
and it really depends on what one defines as an adaptation.
Uh-huh.
Um, I I'm going to say no as an adaptation because I recognize this as a type of adaptation. The word I keep coming back to is kind of a fantasia. Like it
Hmm.
takes elements of Wuthering Heights and turns it into something completely different.
Hmm.
But anyone who's read Wuthering Heights and wants to see a something that resembles the book, I think is going to be disappointed by this movie.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, like when you were talking about like people asking you, should I go see this movie? And you're like, well, I don't know, it depends. It depends on if
Maybe.
you're interested what you want to see. If you want to see
Yes.
something that bears a resemblance to Emily Bronte, then and if you'll
Hmm.
be disappointed if it doesn't, then definitely give this one a pass. But if you're
Hmm.
interested in a very interesting stylistically exploration of desire and of you know soundscape and interesting sets and costumes, um and just a very kind of immersive cinematic experience, then like yes, if you want a 2.5 hour Charlie XCX music video, as you said, go see this
Yes.
movie.
Yeah, in the best way possible. Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think this is not a good adaptation, but I'm also okay with that. And
Yes.
I don't tend to be, ironically with this idea of the whole podcast, I'm not a book purist when it comes to adaptations.
Mhm.
I love when books or movies and TV shows go like off the edge. Like I'm thinking of 10 Things I Hate About You. Excellent adaptation, not pure to the Shakespeare at all. Like I mean, in parts, but
100%.
like barely. I love when films do that, and I think this movie does it. I don't think it does it perfectly. I don't think it's bad. I don't know. Like again, this movie and just like it's in this like weird nebulous in my head where I'm like I really enjoyed a lot of it and I really didn't like some things they chose to do. But
Mhm.
but I'm thinking about it and it's a way to look at the story or her version of the story and read deeper into it and I find it fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that it's getting people talking about Wuthering Heights. Like even if
Yeah.
like some people's takes I'm kind of irritated at, like the fact that Wuthering Heights is trending right now, as
Yeah.
again, as someone who, is in a PhD program studying 19th century British literature,
Yeah.
it's really cool to see that
Yeah.
happening. There seems to be a renaissance happening. And like just
Hmm.
this year, we're gonna get a new Pride and Prejudice adaptation.
Oh, and a new sense of sensibility.
What? No, I haven't heard
Yeah.
about
Yes,
that.
there's a new one coming out this fall. Don't worry, we'll do a special episode
Oh my gosh,
so we can do
yes.
it. Yeah. I
Yes.
did watch the 1930s Wuthering Heights
Mm.
um with Olivier.
Oh, yes. I haven't seen that one.
Uh-huh. I I think for the 1930s, very well done. It's very
Mm.
obvious that why Olivier got, so popular because he's a great actor.
Mhm.
I think it's very obvious that they filmed it in the desert of California, though. And they spend a lot of time outside, and I'm like, there's literally a tumbleweed, my guy. What are you doing? And I get it, like they're old Hollywood. Um, but I enjoyed it. I think
Mhm.
if you want a more accurate first half of Wuthering Heights adaptation. I think it's a solid one. I really
Mhm.
enjoyed the Charlie XCX album. I think there's a lot more themes of the actual Wuthering Heights in her album than the songs that are
Mhm.
featured in the movie because there's more songs on there. It's definitely more moody and angsty and not as brat as her last album, obviously, which was Brat. But I do like seeing big pop stars and big music celebrities like her doing weird artsy projects. I love that. It's kind of like, how Daniel Radcliffe kind of does funny movies because he has the money. He's like, I'm gonna choose projects I think are fun and goofy.
Mhm.
It's kind of like that version for Charlie XCX. She's like, I'm gonna make this one-off thing based on the screenplay based on a book.
Mhm.
And I really like that, I don't know, meta path that she's going on. I really enjoyed it. And I do want to watch, um there is a Japanese adaptation of Wuthering Heights that was made in the 80s that is set in
Mm.
feudalist Japan that
Oh,
I'm very
interesting.
intrigued to watch. And then someone I follow on Letterboxd watched all the Wuthering Heights, and so I was reading all of her reviews, and that's one I think is her favorite one. And
Wow.
so I'm trying to find my hands on that one. And if I do, I'll let you know because it seems like that's a fun new setting for the story
Mhm.
that could play on a lot of these things of like imperialism and racism and classism,
Yes.
but like in a new, different way.
Right. and
I mean,
in a
not
way
new,
that can,
but
in a format that can do that responsibly,
yes,
that
yes,
isn't just going to turn it into sort of an aesthetic
yes,
love story like Emerald Fennel wanted to do.
yes, yeah. So, some fun facts from the movie. In the scene where Heathcliff is talking to Isabella and like doing the whole like, I'm gonna do this. Do you want me to keep going, etc.
Mm.
Apparently, the actress who plays Isabella's hair caught on fire, and Jacob Elordi just put it out with his hands. And that is very important for me to know, apparently. Um, the Wuthering Heights, the kitchen was 3 inches shorter than how tall Jacob Elordi is. So, and they did that on purpose so that he is never standing up straight. He's always hunched over in that kitchen.
Mm.
Um, so I thought that was a fun little touch. The dog that Isabella has is that actress's actual dog and was on the red carpet when they went on the red carpet.
Iconic.
Yeah.
Margot Robbie's lipstick or lip color. TikTok taught me that she used the Burt's Bees tinted lip balm rose shade. And all
Oh,
the girlies were headed to Target to get their lip balm. And I'm going to say her lip color was amazing. And I will be buying that lip balm the
that lip
next time
balm.
I go to Target.
That's funny. That's awesome. And Bert Spears is like, yes, get your stock now, guys. Awesome. Thanks again, Spencer, for joining us on the pod.
Oh yes, it was delightful. I had a great time.
Yes. Thank you, listeners, for listening. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Read the Book First Podcast. Make sure you're subscribed on your preferred podcast platform. Rate us 5 stars. If it's not 5 stars, don't worry about it. And remember, read the book first.